John Chow here from johnchow.com, and welcome to another episode of Driving with John Chow. Today, I want to talk to you about investments. I'm talking about the subject because reader feedback from one of my last video about it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And I talked about the importance of keeping what you make. And people ask, and I got quite a few questions asking like, well, can you give an example of what I invest in? How do I invest my money? And to answer that question, well, it's practically a week-long seminar to answer that kind of question. So, but what I will do instead is I will give you basically my number one rule when it comes to investing, and one other tip. When it comes to where I put my money, see, the investment itself is not so much as important as is this particular mindset you need to get into, and it's a rule as well as a mindset, and that rule is always think after tax. Always think after tax. See, when people look at investment, they look at, oh, we can give you 10% return, we can give you 5% return, we can give you 20% return. That is irrelevant. You need to know the after-tax return of the investment. Because if you don't take tax into consideration, well, you're going to be in for some very, very rude awakening. Remember on a previous Driving with John Chow, I talked to you about what is my biggest expense? Well, my biggest expense is income tax. It's taxes. That's my biggest expense. I spend more money on taxes than anything else. Like, that's it. So, taxes have the most effect on investment. So, therefore, always think after tax. And when you start thinking after tax, you start to realize that certain investment is better than other investment, even though the other investment actually might give a greater return. For example, let's just say you just invest in normal interest-bearing products like a T-bill, savings account, that kind of stuff. See, the interest is taxed at regular income. Interest income is taxed like employment income. And employment income is taxed at a pretty high rate, really. So let's say, but if we were to change that, is instead of making interest income, you were to make dividend income. For example, I'm an Apple shareholder, and Apple pays 47, 48 cents a share per quarter to the shareholders as dividend. And this works out to about, I think only works out to like maybe 2.5% dividend yield, which I suppose is about the same as a T-bill. Actually, probably greater than a T-bill right now. But the thing is, dividend income are taxed at a much lower rate than regular interest income. So if you have a choice between making, say, $10,000 of dividend income or $10,000 of interest income, I'll take 10 grand of dividend income every single time, simply because I'm taking after tax dollars. And because after tax dollars is why I invest in equities. You see, if I were to buy a stock for $10,000 and then sell it for $20,000, that $10,000 gain is also taxed at a different rate than, say, dividend or, say, interest income. And the thing about capital gains is that it's only taxed once it's realized. In other words, if I buy something for $10,000 and today it's worth $20,000, if I don't sell it, even though it has increased $10,000 in a year, if I don't sell it, I don't get taxed on it. So you only get taxed when it's realized gain. So when you hear that Bill Gates his net worth has gone up like 15 billion last year, well, that is an unrealized gain. He doesn't get taxed on that unless he actually sells the stocks to realize the 15 billions of gain, and then he'll get taxed on it. So the cool thing about this is that you can do some really, really neat financial planning. Like I have no intention of ever selling my Apple stocks, even though my Apple stock is more than double, or the triple. Well, it's gone up by quite a bit, but until I sell those stocks, I don't get taxed on it. And then when it comes to actually time to sell it, then there are other ways to try to minimize the tax as well. But the thing is, the rule is this: think after tax when you think about investment. When you look at an investment, don't look at just what kind of return you're going to get. Look at what it is after tax. And once you start thinking that way, you start to realize that taxes has a major impact on your investment. So therefore, in order to minimize tax, then this is the second key point here. If you want to minimize your tax, look at how the government taxes you. Right? There's three entities. Three entities get taxed: individuals, corporations, and trusts. Those are the three entities that government taxes. And if you look at how government taxes those entities, you will then start to realize that, hey, they seem to favor certain groups over another group. And the group they always screw over is always the individual. It's simply because there's so many of them. They're the biggest cash cow for the government. Income tax, employment income, is the biggest cash cow for the government. They make more. Most of the income comes from that source. And so therefore they tax you the highest. It's progressive income tax. And the thing is, if you know this, if you know employment income is taxed the highest, the answer is really, really simple. Don't make employment income. Now, yeah, that's what, basically I have zero employment income. None. Because they're taxed the highest. I refuse to make employment income. So, in other words, look at the way the tax system is set up, and instead of being a victim of it, take advantage of it. Look at the tax rates for various things, and I realize, look at it, go, if I make a couple $100,000 a year, I'm going to get taxed at a really, really high rate if that was employment income. So what I do, I don't make my $250,000 a year as employment income. I make it as something else that's taxed at a much lower rate. So that's, like I said, they're trying to explain all of this. It's going to take a whole week to do this. But this is just a little overview. Always think after tax. Look at the way the government taxes various entities, and instead of being a victim or being taken advantage of by the IRS and the CRA and all the other taxing authorities out there, instead of being taken advantage of, use the tax code that's as written to take advantage of it, to make it work for you. And that is how you get ahead of the game. It's John Chow from johnchow.com. Please subscribe to my channel. I welcome your feedback, and I will see you guys on the next episode.